certain fact for all of us, and unwelcome as it may be, memory loss is part of that. However, we are not powerless. There are certain things that we can do on a daily basis that can positively impact our physical and our mental health. Here with us today is Gerontologist Beverly Sanborn, Vice President of Program Development at Belmont Village Senior Living. Today we're going to discuss whole brain fitness and things that we can do to delay the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Belmont Village is nationally known for their memory care and emphasis on whole brain fitness. Can you tell us what whole brain fitness is?
Well, whole brain fitness is like a combination of physical fitness adding the brain to it. So if you think of physical fitness, you think of exercise, diet, reducing stress, that kind of a thing. And you think of a regimen for that to keep you fit. It doesn't just happen. You have to kind of work at it. If you think of whole brain fitness is adding a brain piece to that. So you would still do all the same physical fitness, but you add a whole segment of exercises specifically to keep your brain agile.
And what does a whole brain fitness lifestyle protocol look like?
Well, I'm glad you said the word lifestyle, because it actually is a changing of the way that you live your life. I mean, it genuinely is. To maintain fitness, you have to keep virtually everything fit all the time. Unfortunately, you can't lag a day or two or a week. One has to keep up a certain protocol. So the fitness protocol has what we call a three-legged stool approach. It's the mind, keeping the mind fit in certain very specific ways, keeping the body fit in certain very specific ways, and then a kind of spiritual or self-actualization. So we call it MBA. And actualization, we came up with the word actualization for that because it embodies the sense of your identity, the sense of your purpose, but also the connection to others. And the wonderful thing about it is it appears to be effective. When they've studied longitudinally, in a longitudinal study, you follow a particular population over time. And when you use a protocol like our whole brain fitness protocol longitudinally, it does appear to delay symptoms of dementia, and so that even if you get a dementing illness, you get it later, much later. And really, the longer you have to live a fulfilled life without dementia, the better it is for you, the easier life is for you. So that is why we've started with whole brain fitness, and we're recommending it as a protocol that should start probably in your 40s.
Now, Belmont Village Senior Retirement Community has an award-winning program nationally known with the emphasis on the whole brain fitness. It's called the Circle of Friends. Can you tell us what the Circle of Friends, how they help seniors that are experiencing dementia and Alzheimer's?
Yeah. Well, the Circle of Friends was based on research that was done on people who didn't have dementia, interestingly enough. They didn't have it, but there were large pieces of research in which they'd have what they call experimental group and control group. And the experimental group would have a whole protocol of special stimulation exercises that would be exercised in what we call 6 domains of stimulation. And what they found is over time, the experimental group did better in retaining their memory and in their mental functioning than the control group, who just had sort of fun and games and played bingo and stuff. So we took that research, and what we did is we translated it to a population that already had dementia. And the 6 domain areas, we translated all those 2 areas into what we called a just right challenge. In other words, it had to be adapted because each of our group did have a dementing illness. So we adapted it, and I'll be darned, we were getting the same results that they got. That over the 6 months, at least half of them were maintaining their functioning.
Sure.
And so then we took that same model and applied it to people who had even more dementia, what you would call moderate. So we started only with mild. Then we moved to moderate, just moderate. And it worked with the moderate also. And I think, you see, a dementing illness is a constant decline. So if you can maintain it, if you can maintain the level that they're at, that's a very big improvement, just maintaining. So we also, in addition to all of our protocol and what we were doing, we introduced the element of fun, because if it isn't fun, well, frankly, they won't come. We began to look at the research that's coming out of Rush, particularly Rush Institute in Chicago, which has been very interested in the importance of social connections. Of course, ours is a group. It already is social. But we began to look at what we can do, how groups can enhance the protocols. That you could do everything that we do individually, but it doesn't have the same impact as it does if you do it in a group setting with the group. Yeah, that is why, actually, my original career, I did a lot of work in home care, but I switched into assisted living environments because I like the group. The group is simply so beneficial that it's just undeniable. It's better than trying to make it work at home.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are some mental exercises that our listeners could do at home?
Well, first, oddly enough, the most important thing you can possibly do for your mental abilities and maintaining your mental agility is physical exercise. That the research is unequivocal. Every year they come out with even stronger research. There's no question about it. You must start a regimen of physical exercise, going to the gym or just taking a walk, but keep it vigorous. Keep it very, very vigorous. And cut down on the red meat and eat more fish and chicken for your meat source. But really emphasize the plant-based piece of your diet. So those would be two very, very big ones. Connecting to a group is another important one. But from the mental point of view, the straight mental, you want to really work on what we call the 6 domains. And the domains are rather interesting, and some of them are a little odd. Some of them are a little different than what you would normally do. But the key and most important one is what they call critical thinking. And that's exercises this part of the brain, the frontal lobe. So frontal lobe exercises are the kinds of things that challenge your brain. Now, for every brain exercise to be effective, it has to have 2 key qualities to it. And this is the tricky part. It has to be something that's new to your brain, and it has to be a mental stretch. And see, when we get together with friends, a lot of times it's just fun. We just talk back and forth, and we just, have quality gossip, maybe not so quality gossip. But, we just have fun, banter.
Right.
But it's not new to our brain. It's not a mental stretch. So one of the best things you can do is something like square dancing. Well, most people don't do that anymore. But square dancing is actually very, very, because you have to learn all the parts.
Yeah, think about the moves and the steps.
The moves and the steps and memorize them. Then the caller calls them out randomly. And you have to quickly, shift, and remember, and then do the step, do, si, do, and bow to your partner and whatever. And then do it with a rhythm. So that also involves rhythm. So that's 3 parts of your brain. So anything that can use multiple parts. Another good one is video games. Video games have been shown to be very effective.
Oh, you can get lost in those.
Yes, you really can. And they require a lot of what we call speed of processing. So that's another feature. But you want to go through the 6 domains, and we have a little slide on the domains so you can see the different kinds of them. So some of them are long-term memory, things you should have learned in school but probably didn't. The other thing you can do is things like try to remember all the presidents, starting with President Biden, go backwards.
Oh, that would be so hard.
Go backwards and see how far back you can go and still remember the presidents. Things of that sort. It's interesting enough, it's easier to go forwards than it is to go backwards. Subtract backwards from 100 by 7s. Now, in that one you have to
That's where you get me.
yeah, well, you have to keep track of the number that you were at, and then you have to keep subtracting by the 7. See, it has multiple tasks in there. Or really, one of my all-time favorites is to go through the alphabet from A to Z. Z is a little tricky. And remember, for example, think of all the animals you can think of that start with the letter A or start with the letter B. So you're asking for a quick organization and then a bunch of recall. These kinds of things you can do that are really fun.
Sounds wonderful. I think that's very, helpful for people that are experiencing this. So now Belmont Village Senior Retirement has 3 locations here in San Diego, but they also have communities nationally.
Yes.
What are some of the cities that
Well,
Belmont's
we have 4 in Northern California.
in? Okay.
We have 5 in the Los Angeles area and all the way out to Thousand Oaks. Then we have Aliso Viejo and 3 here in San Diego, 1 in Scottsdale, and then we have, I think now it's 5 of them in Chicago, and then we have some in the South, Tennessee and that area, and then we now have I think we're up to 5 in Texas. We
Wow.
have 2 going in Florida and a couple in Atlanta, and 1 in Mexico City.
Belmont is on a mission to help as
Yes.
many people as possible. So if a family member, friend, or the actual person themselves are experiencing these symptoms, and they're is considering a move to Belmont Village, what's the best way for them to get a hold of someone that could be of assistance?
Well, they can call the website, and the website has a telephone number, and the person who will answer it is very good at helping you sort out what your needs are, what you're looking for. They really are.
Great. I want to thank you for joining us today. This was all wonderful, helpful information. You're such a professional in your field, and really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. If you're interested in learning more about the Circle of Friends program at Belmont Village Senior Retirement Community, check out the website below. Thanks again for joining us, and stay safe, San Diego.